Good day, my name is RossEasterbrook, Chief Geologist at Coeur Silvertip Mine. Today I'll be discussing a bit about the Silvertip geology and providing a bit of a summary of our 2020 exploration drilling program. So before we get started, please take a moment to review the cautionary statements. So the Silvertip mine is located between Watson Lake and Whitehurst along the Alaska Highway off of a 23-kilometer all-season access road. We are on the British Columbia side of the border. Exploration dates back to the 1950s when the area was originally staked. A big surge in exploration in the 80s when the massive sulfide replacement cell mineralization was discovered and development began underground. Several other major programs in the 90s and early 2000s, and then Coeur mining took over in early 2018. Now, since 2018, exploration and underground development has progressed. The mine has seen limited production in 2018 and 2019, and then in February 2020, the operation was placed on care and maintenance. The decision by the company in order to really conduct a pre-feasibility study to better understand project economics. Now, during this time, the company has continued to invest in exploration, and 2020 marked actually one of the largest drilling programs that the project has seen to date. Now, the Silvertip deposit is considered a carbonate replacement deposit. This is a system where we have fluids moving through the limestone, rising up and hitting an impermeable surface created by the siliciclastic unit. And this is where we see the development of massive sulfides in the form of mantos develop along that contact zone. In our strat section on the right hand side of the screen here, you can see the urine group siliciclastic rocks unconformably overlay the McDame group of limestone and dolostone, which subsequently sits on top of our tapioca sandstone unit. So the Silvertip deposit is broken up into 5 main domains. Along the east side in the blue is our discovery zone, moving west to the central zone in the yellow, further west to Silver Creek in the red. South of Silver Creek is our 65 zone, and south-southwest of the 65 zone is the newly added Camp Creek Fault Zone. Now, the massive sulfides here at Silvertip are very much structurally controlled. There's a series of north-south and northwest-southeast striking faults that offset and displace the sulfides up. These features bound the mineralization along the west side through Silver Creek and Camp Creek, and displace the mineralization and contact down to the east fairly substantially, as you can see in the cross-section on the right. So the main sulfide minerals that make up the mantos at Silvertip include pyrite, galena, sphalerite, pyrrhotite, with lesser amounts of chalcopyrite, arsenopyrite, marcasite, and also a suite of minor sulfur salts. So the bulk of the resource is actually tied up in the manto formations along the contact, but we've also identified some higher angle massive sulfide features which are fully enclosed in the limestone and appear to join up to the contact with the overlying manto formations. So these may potentially be feeder zones that are feeding those manto horizons. In addition to that, the urine sediment is full of xalite style mineralization, strataban massive sulfides that are a bit lower grade than our carbonate replacement style massive sulfides. And in addition to that, although it has not yet been discovered, but skarn mineralization is expected to be present as we move closer towards a potential heat source for the deposit. So the primary goal of the 2020 exploration program was to delineate the outer limits of the existing resource and expand upon them through a series of near mine expansion and step out drill holes. In addition to that, we had a scout drill program which was designed to drill test a series of selected geological targets on a more regional scale. And now drilling started in March, and we extended the program out till Christmas 2020. completed about 61,300 meters of HQ diamond drilling, and with 136 holes reaching target depth. The program was largely successful in expanding the discovery zone resource to the north, to the east, and south underneath Silvertip Mountain. Our scout drilling program defined several new discoveries north of the main deposit and south of the main deposit, and we'll talk about those in a little bit. And based upon these discoveries in the south, we actually began development in an underground exploration drift, which started from the active workings and was moving south towards the 65 zone and underneath Silvertip Mountain. So our journey in 2020 began at the Discovery East zone, where some of the first holes in that area actually defined a series of stacked mantle horizons underneath the contact. From there we moved north to a Discovery North extension, and even further north to the Kata zone, where we found massive sulfide mineralization in amongst the old camp area. Mid-season 2020 brought upon access to the Camp Creek Fault Zone, Discovery South, and to Coeur Ridge, where we discovered some mineralization in those areas. So we started there in Discovery East, where we discovered about 3 stacked massive sulfide mantle horizons deeper under the contact massive sulfide zone along the Ern-McDane surface. With these stacked lenses, it's suggesting we have a higher energy feeder source in close proximity to these stacked lenses. As drilling progressed further to the north, we found ourselves crossing a major regional structure. On the north side of the structure, we found massive sulfides actually displaced deeper down on the north end of this on this feature, and to our surprise, it actually contained elevated amounts of gold. And here's a look at that particular core from Discovery North, where we saw substantial thicknesses of a 5-meter zone here of massive sulfides with the fairly typical high-grade silver, lead, and zinc values that Silvertip is known for. But to our surprise here, the bottom half of this mineralization actually contained 5.3 grams per ton gold. Now here in this cartoon section here, you can see one of the main holes cutting these stacked lenses in Discovery East, pad 11, hole 6, where 4 separate zones of massive sulfide were intersected. And this really highlighted the potential for deeper zones of mineralization throughout the whole limestone column. So beyond this, we really pushed a lot of our holes to test the full extent of the limestone down into the dolostone before ending holes, just to test deeper down for these lower lenses. And with a series of these holes in this area, drilling back from east to west, cutting across the fault zones and into the contact, we were able to extend the stacked lens system that we discovered in 2018 a bit further south, all the way up through this area. And here's a look at that particular drill hole with the 3 lower zones of massive sulfide, all with fairly substantial thicknesses and grade. Okay, as the drill program progressed, we placed some drills up on the north side of Silvertip Mountain and actually angled the holes back underneath the mountain towards the south. And this was in an effort to test the southern extent of the discovery zone underneath the mountain, where the area has been really poorly drilled. 3 holes were drilled, and the 3 holes successfully hit mineralization along the contact, with one of the holes extending mineralization 500 meters south of the known resource. So one of the most significant holes of this Discovery South program was pad 16, hole 4, which intersected 2 zones of mineralization along the Ern-McDane contact and represents about a 500 meter step out south of the main discovery zone. Now this hole actually targeted an area of really limited historical drilling, mainly just due to the surface expression of the Silvertip Mountain. No surface holes have been drilled from the top of the mountain into this area, as the depths of the holes would be reaching over 900 meters. So it's very encouraging to see the mineralization is actually continuing underneath the mountain into this area of limited exploration. And here's a quick look at that one particular drill hole that represents a 500-meter step out directly underneath Silvertip Mountain. Again, two zones of massive sulfide intersected. Assays have not yet been released for this particular hole, but visually the sulfides contain a large amount of coarse-grained galena, which is again a very encouraging sign for the deposit heading underneath the mountain. Okay, and moving further south, the Camp Creek Fault Zone was our highest priority scout target leading into the 2020 exploration program. And after the first 3 to 4 holes were complete and we discovered mineralization in this area, we decided to tighten up the drill spacing and actually target an inferred level of drill spacing in this area in order to build up a maiden resource for the Camp Creek Zone in 2020. And that is, in fact, what we did. We got enough holes into this area to build that maiden resource estimate for the Camp Creek Fault Zone. So as the drill program progressed in the Camp Creek Fault Zone, we saw the thickness of the mineralization actually thicken up in the south end of this zone. In particular, hole 5, pad 5, hole 9 was our furthest to the south drill hole. And it, in fact, had the widest intersection of massive sulfide we had encountered in 2020, with just over 25 meters of massive sulfide mineralization, grading fairly well with silver and lead, and especially zinc with over 15.6% zinc throughout the entire zone. In general, throughout Camp Creek, though, high-grade massive sulfides really analogous to that of the Silver Creek deposit, where we saw silver, lead, and zinc values on the range of 375 to 400 grams per ton silver, 7.5 to 8% lead, and 8% and above zinc values. So incredibly encouraging to see the thickness and grade of the mineralization increase to the south into an area that's really been underexplored. And our last stop here, even further south than Camp Creek, Coeur Ridge was a target situated on the backside, the south side of the Silvertip Mountain, and is about 1.5 kilometers south of the discovery zone. Now, this zone is situated along the same structural trend as the main deposit throughout the discovery zone, and we drilled 8 holes into this area in 2020. All 8 holes intersected massive sulfide in the limestone. In addition to this, actually, we discovered a fairly significant alteration throughout the urine and limestone in this area. So this is suggesting that we certainly have we're in a close proximity to a conduit of fluids moving through the area, precipitating out massive sulfides throughout this zone. So some of the best zones reached up to about 6 meters in thickness, and here we see pad 4, hole 2, where we had just over 4 meters of massive sulfide, demonstrating our pyrite, pyrrhotite, sphalerite rich phase of mineralization here at Silvertip, with just over 14% zinc. So prior to the start of the 2020 exploration program, historic drilling had really focused in on the 1 kilometer strike length in the dark blue resource shape of the Discovery and Silver Creek zones. With our scout drilling programs and large step outs throughout the 2020 program, we've expanded the mineralized strike length to over 3.5 kilometers now, and there's still room to grow north and south, and certainly to the east. The new discoveries with our scope program in the Camp Creek and Coeur Ridge zones have pushed us to start development of our underground exploration drift to get underneath Silvertip Mountain and to test these areas where previous exploration has not been able to reach. And so incredibly encouraging to end the season on still leaving the deposit wide open to the north and certainly to the south where Coeur Ridge remains open, and the gaps between Camp Creek and Coeur Ridge will remain to be infilled. We have already begun drilling on surface in 2021 with expansion and infill drills working in the Discovery Zone, and an underground rig will be available shortly out of our exploration ramp to begin infilling the 65 zone from the exploration drift. And finally here, a look at our reserve year-end statement for 2020, just recently released to the markets. Year over year from 2019 to 2020, we see approximately about a million-ton resource growth. Half of that would be in the inferred category, and the other half coming into the indicated category. With this additional tonnage added, we also saw a slight uptick in grade. So it's very encouraging that we are actually adding tons that are on par with our deposit grade and actually increasing that grade slightly. And that wraps up the presentation for today. We have another really exciting year of drilling planned for 2021 and hope we can recreate some of the success we saw in 2020. But thanks very much for listening, and hope to answer any of your questions.